Whitney Anderson didn't budge, looked him straight in the eye.
How dare you humiliate me, ugly black woman!
You guys started the trouble. I couldn't serve anyone.
The group of thugs growled.
You think you can chase me out? Beg! Then come to a hotel with us.
You've crossed the line.
The sound echoed through the empty streets. Her voice lowered. Tyler Wilson's smirk twitched, then surrounded. He spat on the asphalt.
Stinking scum like you knows nothing!
Whitney took one slow step forward. A wrench slammed into the hood of the car. The metallic screech tore across the empty lot at 2 a.m. They had no idea. The ordinary woman in front of them was about to change their lives forever. To get how 6 men picked the wrong night, we rewind to 8 hours earlier. The sun was setting over Norfolk East. Whitney Anderson stood at the front counter of May's kitchen, tying her mother's faded apron around her waist. The fabric smelled like coffee, bacon grease, and 28 years of honest work. "You sure about this, baby?" Mama May watched from the kitchen doorway, her left hand pressed against her lower back. 62 years old, and the diner had taken every one of them. "Mama, you need to rest. 10 days. That's all I'm asking. 10 days of you serving truckers at 2 a.m. instead of resting your own self." Whitney smiled. "I rest by being home with you." May's kitchen sat on the corner of Brambleton and 19th, open 24 hours a day since 1996. Truckers, night shift nurses, factory workers, they all came through. Mama May knew every regular by name. She remembered birthdays. She slid free pie to anyone who looked like they hadn't eaten in a while. Whitney had grown up in that diner, did her homework in booth 6, washed dishes for tip money at 13. She left for the Navy at 18 and never looked back. Until now. Most folks in the neighborhood thought she worked some kind of fitness job for the government. A trainer, maybe. Something with physical education. Whitney never corrected them. The truth was on a sealed personnel file 3 states away. Whitney Anderson, GS-12, Tier 1 Combatives Instructor, Naval Special Warfare Group 2. 12 years on the contract. Over 300 SEAL candidates certified under her hand. She had thrown 200-pound operators across a training mat for a living. But not tonight. Tonight she was just May's daughter. Faded apron, hair tied back in a ponytail, worn sneakers on a wet kitchen floor. She poured coffee for a trucker in booth 2, wiped down the counter, listened to Mama May list off who liked what. "Mr. Davis takes his eggs runny. Don't mess that up." "I won't, Mama." "And the boys from the auto shop, they tip light, but they're polite. Treat 'em right." "Yes, ma'am." By 9 that evening, Mama May had gone upstairs to lie down. The diner thinned out. Marla Jensen rolled in around 10. 15 years driving long haul, 15 years eating May's chicken fried steak between routes. Marla took her usual booth by the window. Whitney brought her coffee without asking. "Heard you was back," Marla said. "May been holding up?" "Her back's bad. I'm covering nights this week." Marla's jaw tightened. She looked out the dark window. "You be careful, Whitney." "Careful of what?" "There's a crew been coming around lately. 6 of them. Call themselves Skull Crew. Tattoos up to their ears. Dye their hair like clowns, but ain't a damn thing funny about 'em." Whitney set the coffee pot down slowly. 18 months they've been running this side of town. Busting windows. Beating on the homeless man who sleeps behind the laundromat. 2 girls quit waitressing at the Waffle House because of them. Police got a stack of complaints this thick. Marla held her thumb and finger apart. "Nothing sticks. Daddy's got money." "Who's Daddy?" "Wilson kid. Tyler. Real estate family. They settle everything before it sees a courtroom." Whitney looked toward the front door. The neon "Open" sign buzzed faintly in the window. "May knows?" "May knows. She just don't want to worry you." Whitney didn't answer. She refilled Marla's cup, walked back behind the counter, and stared at the front door for a long moment. Marla left at 11:47 with a tip and a warning. "Lock the back door, sugar, and keep your phone close." Midnight came. Then 12:30. Then 1 o'clock. The diner emptied to silence. Whitney wiped tables, restacked menus, hummed an old gospel song her mother used to sing. At 1:23 a.m., the bell above the front door jingled. 6 men walked in. Tyler Wilson smiled. Tyler Wilson took the booth nearest the door. The other 5 spread across 2 tables, boots up on the vinyl seats. The biggest one, bald, skull tattoos crawling up his neck, kicked a chair over just to watch it fall. His name was Brett. Whitney didn't know that yet. Tyler snapped his fingers at her. "Hey, coffee, now!" Whitney walked over with the pot. Calm, professional. The way her mother had taught her at 13, she poured. Tyler watched her hand. The moment she turned to leave, Brett picked up a small stone, the kind people used to wedge open the back door, and flicked it. It hit Whitney square in the shoulder. The whole crew burst out laughing. Whitney stopped. Didn't turn around. Set the coffee pot down on an empty table. "Pick that up, girl," Tyler said. He pulled a crumpled 20 out of his pocket and dropped it on the wet floor by his boot. "There's your tip. Earn it." Whitney looked at the bill. Looked at him. "You can pay at the register when you leave." The smile dropped off Tyler's face. Brett shook the salt shaker open across the whole booth. Table, seats, floor. Another one of the crew balled up a wet napkin and threw it at the elderly couple in booth 4. The old man flinched. His wife reached for his hand. "This your diner, sweetheart?" Tyler called out. "Or you just the help?" Whitney walked back to the counter. She picked up the landline phone, dialed 3 numbers, loud enough for them to hear. "Norfolk Police. There are 6 men refusing to leave May's Kitchen on Brambleton and 19th. Possible harassment of an elderly couple. Send a unit." 6 heads turned. Tyler stood up slowly. He walked across the diner, leaned over the counter, and put his face inches from hers. "You just made a real big mistake, sweetheart." His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. "I'll be waiting outside. When that pretty little shift ends, we'll finish this conversation." He straightened, smiled wide, tossed the crumpled 20 onto the floor at her feet. The 6 of them walked out. The bell jingled behind them. Whitney looked at the clock above the door. 4 hours until close. For the next hour, Whitney worked like nothing had happened. She poured refills, wiped down booth 4, walked the elderly couple to their car, and made sure they pulled away safe. The old woman squeezed her hand before getting in. "Thank you, sugar. Be careful tonight." "Yes, ma'am. You drive safe." Whitney watched their taillights fade down Brambleton. Then she locked the front door behind her. The open sign still buzzed in the window. Her phone rang at 12:14. It was Mama May. "How's it going down there, baby?" Whitney smiled into the receiver. "Quiet night, Mama. Real quiet." "You sure?" "I'm sure. Get some sleep." She hung up. Looked through the front window. Across the street, parked under a busted streetlight, sat a black pickup truck. Tinted windows. Engine off. She knew exactly who was inside. Tyler Wilson sat in the driver's seat, cigarette burning between his fingers. The smoke curled out of the cracked window. His knee bounced. He watched the diner. In his head, he kept hearing it. The way she'd said it. "You can pay at the register when you leave." Like she was the boss. Like she had the right. He'd grown up in this neighborhood. His father owned 3 blocks of it. The Wilson name had paid for the mayor's re-election, had bought silence from cops, from city council, from every diner owner who knew better than to file a complaint. He'd done this before. The grocer last spring. The kid at the body shop 2 summers ago. The waitress at the Waffle House who'd quit the next morning. None of them filed. None of them came back. And this woman, this nobody in a dirty apron. She'd called the police on him, in front of his own crew. He took a long drag, exhaled slow. "Nah," he said to the empty truck. "Nah, that ain't happening." He pulled out his phone, sent a group text. "Bring the tools. Back lot of Mays. 1 hour." 4 replies came back within minutes. Then a 5th. 6 total. Inside the diner, the regulars trickled out one by one. A trucker tipped $12. 2 nurses stopped in for coffee on their way home. A janitor picked up a takeout order and asked about Mama May's back. By 1:30 a.m., the last customer was gone. Whitney moved through the routine her mother had taught her 30 years ago. Wipe the tables, flip the chairs, mop the floor, count the register, bag the cash. She didn't rush. She didn't slow down. She worked like any other Tuesday night. But her eyes kept drifting to the back window, and every time they did, the muscle in her jaw tightened a fraction more. She had been trained for this. Not the diner, the other thing. The thing nobody in Norfolk knew about her. She knew the math of a 6-on-1 ambush. She knew the geometry of a half circle. She knew how this kind of night ended for the wrong woman. She was not the wrong woman. Outside, in the gravel lot, 6 figures had gathered around Tyler's truck. Brett stood closest to the building. He held a heavy steel wrench, the kind mechanics used in auto shops, 45 centimeters of solid metal. The kind of thing that didn't break when it hit something. The kind of thing that broke other things instead. Behind him, 5 more men. Each one held something. Things that glinted under the parking lot light. Cold metal, hard edges. Tyler leaned against the hood of his truck. He looked at his crew with the calm of a man who had done this before, because he had. "Listen up," he said, low, steady. "We don't kill her. We don't put her in the hospital where some prosecutor gets brave. We teach her. She learns who runs this block. She learns her place. Tomorrow she packs her bag and gets gone." Brett spit on the gravel. "And if she fights back?" Tyler laughed, a short, ugly bark. "She's a waitress, man. She ain't fighting nobody. She's gonna cry. She's gonna apologize. That's how this goes." He looked at the back door of the diner. The lights inside were dimming, one by one. "Phones in pockets," Tyler said. "Nobody records this." The 6 of them nodded. At 1:58 a.m., Whitney pushed open the back door of May's kitchen. She carried her keys in one hand and a canvas bag in the other. The bag held the night's deposit, $340, bound for the morning bank run. The door clicked shut behind her. She locked it, turned around, and froze for half a second. The gravel lot wasn't empty. 6 men stepped out from the shadows around her car. They moved slow, deliberate, spread out in a wide half circle that cut off every exit, the alley to her left, the chain-link fence behind her, the street ahead. The streetlight overhead flickered once, then steadied. Tyler walked to the center. He stopped 6 feet from her. He spat on the asphalt between her sneakers. "Black girl," he said, "you're not making it home tonight." He threw a fistful of crumpled bills at her chest. They scattered around her feet. Behind her, Brett raised the wrench over his head. He brought it down with both hands onto the hood of Whitney's old Camry. The steel struck the metal with a sound like a gunshot. The hood caved in. The whole car rocked on its tires. The crew laughed. Another one, the skinny one on her right, scooped up a stone from the gravel and threw it. It cracked into Whitney's shoulder. The same shoulder Brett had hit hours earlier. She didn't flinch. She set the canvas bag down on the asphalt. Slow, deliberate. Both hands open at her sides, palms forward. Her ponytail still neat. Her apron still tied. That was what they saw. That was the last thing they would ever get wrong. "I'm going to say this once," she said. Her voice was even. "Walk away." Tyler laughed. "Twice." Tyler took a step toward her. 3 times. "After this, I stop asking." "Okay, stop. Real question. 6 guys, weapons, 2 a.m., nobody around. And she warns them 3 times before doing anything. 3. Would you have given them 3? Drop your answer below before I keep going. I'm honestly curious how many of you would have held back that long." Brett raised the wrench again. This time he didn't aim at the car. He aimed at her head. He swung. Time slowed. In the half-second between Brett's swing and the wrench reaching her head, Whitney's mind moved through every step her body had been trained to take. She counted them. Brett, 2 o'clock. Wrench, biggest threat at close range. The skinny one on her right, a length of metal pipe in his fist. Tyler, 12 o'clock, 6 feet away, no weapon, but the leader. 3 more men spread along the outer arc. 2 had blades that caught the streetlight. 1 held something heavy in a closed hand. 6 attackers, 3 weapons in close, 2 exits cut. Police minutes out at best. She had warned them 3 times. 3. That was the rule her instructors had drilled into her. Warn, then warn again, then act. The legal line was crossed the moment Brett's wrench started moving toward her skull. Whitney untied her mother's apron with one quick motion, let it fall to the asphalt at her feet. She wouldn't have it stained with what came next. Her ponytail stayed neat. Her sneakers settled into a low, wide stance, shoulders square, knees soft, weight loaded onto the balls of her feet. Hands rose to chest height, open, ready. Tyler saw the change. Just for a second, somewhere deep behind his ribs, a small, cold thing went still. Then Brett's wrench swung again. This time, Whitney was the one who moved first. The wrench came down in a wide, 2-handed arc, the kind of swing built to crush a skull. 45 centimeters of solid steel dropping fast through the wet night air. Whitney didn't step back. She stepped in. She moved diagonally, inside the arc, toward Brett's body, before the wrench reached the bottom of its path. Her left forearm came up and slammed against the inside of his elbow. The technique was called an inside arm trap. SEAL Combative School taught it in week 2. It killed the momentum of the swing before the weapon ever reached her head. The wrench passed harmlessly behind her ear. She felt the wind of it brush her ponytail. Brett's arm locked. His face went from a sneer to something else. Confusion, then the first edge of panic. His weight was forward. His feet were planted wrong. He couldn't recover. He couldn't even pull back. Whitney's right hand caught his wrist in a 4-finger grip. She turned her hips 90 degrees. Her whole body became a lever. The small woman in a faded apron suddenly using physics the way a carpenter uses a saw. Brett's shoulder rolled with the wrench, the joint stretching against itself, and the wrench fell out of his fingers like a child's toy. She caught it in midair with her left hand. 2 seconds had passed. She didn't keep the wrench. She didn't need it. A weapon kept was a weapon a partner could take back. That was a rule from her own classroom. She had said it 500 times to 500 candidates over 12 years of teaching. She drove her right knee up into the meat of his thigh, the common peroneal nerve strike just above the knee. 12 years of teaching had shown her exactly where the nerve ran. Brett's leg buckled like the bone had been cut out of it. He dropped to one knee on the gravel with a grunt that sounded almost surprised, like a man who had just realized a story he'd told himself about himself was a lie. Whitney threw the wrench, underhand, hard. It skidded across the asphalt and disappeared under the wheel well of her wrecked Camry, 15 feet away. Out of every man's reach. 3 seconds. Tyler watched it from 6 feet away. His brain registered the sound, metal sliding on asphalt, but it could not yet attach meaning to what his eyes had seen. Brett was the biggest of them. Brett had ended fights in this neighborhood before they started. Brett was on his knees. Brett tried to grab Whitney's leg from the ground. Whitney's heel came down on the back of his hand. Bone met gravel. He howled. She stepped over him without looking back, because behind her, on her right side, another set of sneakers was already moving fast on the wet gravel. The skinny one came in hard. Metal pipe raised over his shoulder. No footwork, all rage. He was thinking about the swing, not about the gap between him and her. He had been told tonight was a lesson for a waitress, and he had not updated that picture even after watching Brett drop. Whitney pivoted on her left foot. Her body turned a clean 180 degrees, putting her chest to the attack instead of her back. The pipe was already coming down. Her left forearm parried the strike outward, outside parry, pushing his wrist past her body. His weight kept going. She caught his bicep with her right hand. Her left hand grabbed the collar of his shirt at the back of the neck. What happened next took less than a second. Whitney rotated her hips into him, dropped her center of gravity, and let his own momentum do the work. It was textbook judo, hip toss, ogoshi, adapted for wet asphalt by an instructor who had taught it 500 times. His feet left the ground. His weapon arm flailed at empty air, and then his back slammed flat onto the wet pavement. The pipe rang once when it hit and rolled away under a dumpster. The skinny man's head bounced off the asphalt with a sound nobody in the crew would forget. His body went loose. His eyes stayed open, but they didn't see anything. 6 seconds. The remaining 4 froze for half a beat. Long enough to watch their friend stop moving. Long enough to realize the woman in the apron had not stopped moving once. Long enough to know that whatever Tyler had told them this was, a lesson, an easy night, a waitress, that wasn't what this was. Then they came anyway, because they were already in it. Because backing down now would mean explaining it to Tyler. And nobody wanted to be the one Tyler talked to in the morning. 2 of them rushed her at once, one from the left, one from the right. The one on the left had a folding blade flicked open, the steel a thin glint under the buzzing parking lot light. The one on the right had a length of rebar in his fist. Whitney moved backward and inward, diagonal, into the smaller gap between them. Her hand caught the wrist of the man with the blade. She didn't fight his force. She added to it. She pulled. His own swing carried him directly into the path of his friend. The blade flashed past the rebar man's shoulder, close enough to slice through fabric. The rebar man flinched and stepped sideways. The 2 of them collided shoulder to shoulder, off balance, weapons tangled, swearing at each other in confusion. Whitney didn't wait. Her right leg snapped out in a low kick, instep driving sideways into the outside of the rebar man's knee. The joint hyperextended with a sound that was very quiet and very wrong. He went down screaming. The rebar fell from his hand and hit the gravel beside him. Before he hit the ground, Whitney's left elbow came around in a tight arc and connected with the temple of the man with the blade. The strike was placed, not powered. The smallest target, the highest impact. SEAL Combatives doctrine called it a finishing strike for a reason. He sagged at the knees and crumpled sideways onto the body of his friend, the folding knife slipping out of his hand and skittering across the gravel. Whitney's foot pinned the knife against the asphalt. She kicked it backward toward the diner wall, out of reach. Then she kicked the rebar, too. Both weapons disappeared into the shadow under the back steps, swallowed by darkness. 11 seconds. She took a single step back to reset her stance. Tyler was still in the center. 2 of his crew left standing. His mouth was open. Nothing was coming out. The cigarette in his fingers had burned down to the filter, and he had not felt it. The man on Tyler's left, short, heavy, beard down to his chest, was the one with a heavy object in his closed hand. He opened his fingers now. A roll of quarters. Brass knuckles in a poor man's version. He charged with the inarticulate roar of a man who didn't know what else to do. Whitney's eyes swept the lot. The training was making the choice for her now. The body knew. The body knew. The body knew. 3 feet to her right, against the back wall of the diner, sat a galvanized metal trash can. The lid was already loose. She'd taken out the trash 2 hours earlier, and the latch hadn't seated right. She'd noticed at the time, filed it away the way her brain filed everything. The geometry of the lot, the exits, the throwaway weapons. The training never turned off. Not on a shift, not on a day off, not anywhere. She moved. 2 steps, a low pivot, and the lid was in her left hand. Flat, round, the size of a dinner plate. A shield. An old technique. The Roman legions had used the same principle for 600 years. Whitney's instructors had taught it under a different name, improvised barrier defense, but the geometry was identical. The bearded man's fist came down. Whitney met it with the rim of the lid. The roll of quarters cracked against galvanized steel. His knuckles split open. The roll fell from his hand and burst across the gravel in a spray of silver coins that rolled in a dozen directions. He shouted in pain. Whitney drove the edge of the lid into his throat. Not hard enough to crush the windpipe, hard enough to drop him. The instructors at Little Creek called it a controlled strike, 20 pounds of pressure short of lethal. He staggered back, hands at his neck, gasping for air that didn't come fast enough. She stepped behind him in one motion, her right arm hooked under his armpit and up behind his head, a half Nelson, and her foot swept his ankle out from under him. He went face down onto the gravel. Her knee landed in the small of his back. His arm was already locked. 20 seconds, 5 down. She let the trash can lid fall. It rang once on the asphalt. Coins clinked against it. The man on Tyler's right took one look at the bodies on the ground around him, at his 5 friends, at the woman standing in the center of it all, still in her sneakers, still in her ponytail, breathing even, and he ran. He didn't make it 10 steps. He tripped over the curb at the edge of the lot, fell on his face in the alley, and stayed there. He pulled his knees up to his chest and put his hands over his head. He started to cry, quietly, into the gravel. That left Tyler. He was standing exactly where he had been 22 seconds earlier. He had not moved. His mouth was open. The cigarette filter was still between his fingers. His brain was still trying to process the moment Brett's wrench had bounced harmlessly off the night air behind a woman in an apron. His 4 crew members lay in a half circle around Whitney. 2 were unconscious. 1 was sobbing and holding his knee. 2 more were curled face down, motionless except for shaking. The 6th was 20 feet down the alley, hiding behind a dumpster. Tyler had not landed a single blow. He had not even raised a hand. He was the leader. He was the Wilson kid whose father owned 3 blocks of Norfolk, and he was the only one still standing because Whitney had saved him for last. Whitney took 1 step toward him. The cigarette dropped from his fingers. He didn't notice. "What?" His voice cracked. He tried again. "What the hell are you?" Whitney didn't answer. He took a step back, then another. His heel hit the bumper of his own truck. He looked left, looked right. There was nowhere to go. His own truck, the one he had used to coordinate the ambush, had cornered him against the wall of his own plan. "Wait," he said. Wait. I'm sorry, all right? It was a joke. It was just we weren't going to actually hurt you." He turned to run. Whitney closed the distance in 2 strides. Her right hand caught the back of his collar. Her left hand caught his wrist as he flailed. She twisted the wrist inward and up, a standard control hold, the kind she had used on 300 SEAL candidates over 12 years, and drove her knee gently into the back of his thigh. His legs folded. His face went down against the wet asphalt. She knelt one knee on his shoulder blade. Her other hand kept his wrist locked behind his back. The hold was painless if he stayed still. It would dislocate his shoulder if he moved. He had been told this with a body, not with words. He stayed still. Tyler's cheek was pressed flat against the pavement. He could see the crumpled bills he had thrown at her feet, scattered around her sneakers, soaking up rainwater. The bills he had told her to beg for. The bills he had used 2 hours earlier to tell her she was nothing. "Please," he whispered. The bravado was gone. The whole performance was gone. There was only a young man on the ground in a wet parking lot at 2 in the morning. Please, I have money. My dad has money. We can pay you. We can make this all go away. Please don't." Whitney didn't look at him. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She reached into her back pocket with her free hand, pulled out her phone, thumbed it on, dialed 3 numbers. "Norfolk Police, dispatch, this is Whitney Anderson at May's Kitchen, Brambleton and 19th. I made a 911 call from this address 90 minutes ago. 6 suspects have been restrained at the rear of the property following an attempted armed assault. Multiple cold weapons on the ground. 2 suspects will need medical. The scene is secure. Send units." She listened for a moment. Her voice never rose. "Yes, ma'am, I'll wait. They're not going anywhere." She hung up, slid the phone back into her pocket. Behind her, the back door of May's kitchen burst open. "Whitney?" Mama May's voice was high and thin and terrified. "Whitney, baby, what? Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord Jesus." Mama May stood in the doorway in her nightgown and slippers. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes moved across the gravel lot. The bodies, the dropped weapons, the broken Camry, the scattered cash, the silver coins still rolling. And finally to her daughter. Whitney was standing in the center of it all. Apron at her feet, ponytail still neat, hands clean, breathing slow and even. She turned to her mother. Her voice was the same voice that had answered Mama May's phone call at 12:14. "It's okay, Mama. It's over." In the distance, sirens started to wail. 40 seconds. 6 men. 1 black woman in a faded apron. The same woman they had thrown money at. The same woman they had told to beg. 3 Norfolk PD cruisers turned into the lot 90 seconds after Whitney's second call. Lights spinning. No sirens for the last block. They'd cut them on Brambleton to keep the element of surprise. They didn't need it. The lead officer stepped out first. Sergeant Laura Davis, mid-40s, 22 years on the force, hair pulled back tight under her cap. Her flashlight swept the gravel lot in a slow arc. Whitney was already in position. Both hands raised above her head, fingers spread wide, knees slightly bent. Calm. Visible. The way Navy training had taught her to greet armed responders to an active scene. "Officer," Whitney called out. Her voice was even. "I'm the one who called. The threat is neutralized. 6 suspects on the ground. I'm unarmed. Security camera on the back wall caught the entire incident. My ID is in my back left pocket." Davis's flashlight steadied on Whitney's face. Then it moved across the lot. Brett, still on his knees. The skinny one, motionless. The 2 tangled together near the dumpster. The bearded one, face down with his arm locked. Tyler, pressed against the asphalt, sobbing. The 6th, curled up at the curb. 6 men, none of them moving toward Whitney. Davis lowered her flashlight a fraction. "Ma'am, step away from the suspect on the ground, slowly." Whitney released Tyler's wrist and stood up. Took 3 measured steps back. Kept her hands visible. 2 more officers moved in to secure Tyler. Cuffs clicked. Then they moved to each man in the half circle, one by one. Davis approached Whitney. Up close, her eyes narrowed at the broken Camry, the scattered bills, the silver coins still rolling on the asphalt. "May's Kitchen," Davis said quietly. "My grandmother ate here every Sunday for 20 years. You May's girl?" "Yes, ma'am." Whitney. Davis nodded once. Her flashlight beam caught Tyler's face as the officers lifted him up. Her jaw set. "Wilson kid." "Yes, ma'am." "And that one," she pointed at Brett, "is Bradley Hughes. The bearded one is Carl Mason." She let out a long breath through her nose. "Skull Crew. We've been trying to put hands on these 6 for 18 months. Mama May stepped forward from the doorway, still in her nightgown. "Officer, my daughter. They came at her." Davis raised a gentle hand. "Mrs. Anderson, it's all right. Whitney called us first. Twice. We have the recordings, and I can see what happened here." She looked around the lot one more time. "With respect, I've worked this neighborhood a long time. Nobody's losing sleep tonight over these boys being on the ground." Whitney didn't answer. She walked to her mother and put an arm around her shoulders. Mama May was shaking. The security camera footage was pulled from the diner's DVR within 20 minutes. The angle was wide. It covered the back lot, the door, the trash can, every weapon, every warning, every blow. Davis watched the first 60 seconds on a tablet and then turned the screen off. She handed Whitney a card. "I'll have a detective contact you in the morning. Lock up. Go home. Try to sleep." 2 ambulances rolled in for Bradley Hughes and the skinny one. A possible concussion, a hairline wrist fracture, nothing life-threatening. The other 4 were loaded into the back of cruisers. Tyler kept his head down. He did not look at Whitney as they walked him past her. By 3:47 a.m., the lot was empty except for police tape and a tow truck for the wrecked Camry. Whitney locked the back door of May's kitchen with her mother's keys. Mama May held her daughter's free hand the whole walk upstairs. At 8:03 a.m., Whitney's phone rang. The screen said, "Norfolk Police, Chief's Office, Norfolk Police Department Headquarters, 10 in the morning." Whitney walked through the front doors in a simple white blouse and dark jeans. Her hair was washed, but still pulled back in the same plain ponytail. Mama May walked beside her in her Sunday dress, holding her daughter's elbow. Chief Daniel Brooks met them in the lobby. 58 years old, 6'2", 30 years on the job, the last 8 as chief. His handshake was firm. His eyes were tired but kind. "Miss Anderson, thank you for coming in. We've set up in the briefing room." The briefing room held more people than Whitney had expected. 3 local news crews, a reporter from the Virginian Pilot, 2 officers from the night shift, including Sergeant Davis, along the back wall, and Chief Brooks himself, walking to a small lectern. He waited for the cameras to settle. Then he began. "Last night at approximately 1:58 a.m., 6 men ambushed a citizen behind a family-owned diner on Brambleton and 19th. They were armed. They had planned the attack. They had a recorded history in this department's case files." He paused. The room was silent. "That citizen is Ms. Whitney Anderson, standing here to my left." Cameras swung. Whitney did not move. "The 6 suspects taken into custody last night are known to this department as Skull Crew. Over the past 18 months, this department has logged 23 separate complaints involving these individuals: assault, property destruction, possession of illegal weapons, harassment of minority business owners, intimidation of female employees on the night shift." Brooks took a long breath. "Tyler Wilson, the ringleader of this group, has had 4 prior incidents quietly settled by his family before reaching this department's desk. As of this morning, that is no longer happening. His father has been informed." The room shifted. A reporter scribbled fast. "Last night, Ms. Anderson, a private citizen, on her own personal time, working a shift at her mother's diner, neutralized all 6 suspects without firing a weapon, without escalating to lethal force, and without sustaining a single significant injury. She issued 3 verbal warnings on camera before defending herself. She called 911 twice, once before the assault began, once the moment it ended. Every step of her response was lawful, measured, and recorded." He turned toward Whitney. "Ms. Anderson, on behalf of the City of Norfolk, this department, and every resident of this neighborhood, I am presenting you with the Norfolk Police Department's Citizen Commendation for extraordinary public service." He held out a framed certificate and a small bronze medal. Cameras flashed. Whitney took the frame. She nodded once. A reporter near the front raised a hand. "Ms. Anderson, where did you learn to fight like that?" Whitney met the reporter's eyes. "I've trained for a long time." That was all she said. Mama May stepped forward then. She put both arms around her daughter and pressed her face into Whitney's shoulder. The cameras kept rolling. The room went quiet. "Baby," Mama May whispered, loud enough to be heard. "Mama is so sorry. I should have told you about those boys. I should have warned you. I never wanted." Whitney shook her head against her mother's hair. "Mama, I came home to help you. Last night was just another shift." In the back of the room, Sergeant Davis had moved to a desk along the wall. She was bent over a computer screen. Her hand was on the mouse. She had typed Whitney Anderson's name into the Federal Records database an hour earlier and hit Enter just as the ceremony began. The screen finished loading. Davis's eyes went wide. She straightened up, walked quickly across the room, leaned in toward Chief Brooks, whispered something in his ear. Brooks turned slowly and looked at Whitney. Brooks turned to Whitney. His voice dropped, low enough that only she and her mother could hear. "Ms. Anderson, I have just been given information from your federal personnel file. Is there anything you would prefer I not share publicly?" Whitney looked at her mother, then back at the chief. "I wasn't hiding it, Chief. It just wasn't the moment." Brooks nodded once. "It's the moment now. With your permission?" "Go ahead." He walked back to the lectern. He set both hands on the wood. He looked at the cameras, and the room went still in a way it had not gone still before. "There is one more thing this department wants the city of Norfolk to know about Ms. Whitney Anderson, and it changes the meaning of what happened in that parking lot last night." He took a breath. "Ms. Anderson is a civilian federal employee at the rank of GS-12, assigned to Naval Special Warfare Group 2. She is a Tier 1 Combatives instructor. For the past 12 years, her job has been to teach hand-to-hand combat, weapons disarmament, and close quarters defense to the candidates of the United States Navy SEAL program. A reporter dropped her pen. Another one whispered, audibly, "Oh my God." Brooks kept going. Over the course of her career, Ms. Anderson has personally certified more than 300 Navy SEAL operators, men who have served on every continent. She trained them. She tested them. She graded their readiness for combat. He paused. Last night, 6 men in this city decided to ambush a black woman in a faded apron at 2 in the morning because they thought she was an easy target. The room was silent. That woman was a Navy SEAL Combatives instructor. A reporter found her voice first. "Chief, are you telling us that 6 gang members surrounded a Navy SEAL trainer in a parking lot?" Brooks looked straight at the camera. "That is exactly what I am telling you. And Ms. Anderson gave them 3 chances to walk away before she defended herself. 3. Behind the lectern, a tablet was lifted onto a small stand. The screen lit up. A woman's face appeared, uniformed, sharp, the gold oak leaf of a Navy commander on her collar. "Good morning, Chief Brooks. Good morning, Miss Anderson." "Commander Taylor," Brooks said. "For the record, Commander Sarah Taylor, Naval Special Warfare Group 2. Ms. Anderson is one of the most experienced combatives instructors in the United States Navy. Her record at our command is exemplary. Based on the security footage I reviewed this morning, Ms. Anderson followed every principle of escalation control, minimum necessary force, and lawful self-defense that we teach our own operators. The Navy is proud to call her one of ours." Commander Taylor turned slightly to face Whitney through the screen. "Whitney, you did everything right. Come back to work when you're ready. Take your time with your mother." The screen went dark. Whitney didn't say anything. She just nodded, once, the way she had nodded to Brooks. Beside her, Mama May had gone very, very still. "Baby," she whispered. Her voice trembled. 12 years. I thought you were teaching gym." Whitney smiled, small and tired. "I didn't want you to worry, Mama. I'm sorry." Mama May touched her daughter's cheek with one shaking hand. Tears spilled. "My baby." "I know, Mama. I know." The video of that ceremony was uploaded to local news websites within an hour. By that evening, it was on every national feed in the country. #StandWithWhitney trended first. Then #May's Kitchen Hero. By the next morning, Whitney was back at the diner, tying her mother's faded apron around her waist, refilling a trucker's coffee like nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia announced federal charges against all 6 members of Skull Crew. The charges included conspiracy to commit assault, federal hate crime enhancements, and illegal possession of weapons across state lines. Tyler Wilson faced 15 to 20 years in federal prison. The plea deal his father's lawyers tried to broker fell apart the moment the prosecutors saw the diner's security camera footage and the bills Tyler had thrown at Whitney's feet. Every threat he had made, every slur he had spoken, every step his crew had taken, all of it had been recorded by the camera Mama May had installed 2 years earlier to keep her staff safe. Tyler's own video, Tyler's own words, Tyler's own crew now testifying against him in exchange for reduced sentences. His father held a press conference. He apologized. The Wilson name did not appear on any new construction contracts in Norfolk after that month. In the neighborhood, things began to change quietly. The city repaired 3 broken streetlights on Brambleton within the first week. A second police patrol was added to the night shift around the diner district. The owner of the Waffle House 2 blocks down hung a small framed photo of Whitney behind the counter with a handwritten card underneath it. "Thank you." May's Kitchen never had a slow night again. Chief Brooks and Commander Taylor met in the same briefing room a month later. Together with 3 local nonprofits, they launched the program. They called it May's Defense. Every Sunday morning at 9, in the Fellowship Hall of the Greater Light Baptist Church on Brambleton, free self-defense classes were offered to night shift workers, single mothers, restaurant staff, hotel housekeepers, rideshare drivers, anyone whose work brought them home alone in the dark. The lead instructor was Whitney Anderson. Mama May took her doctor's advice and cut back her own hours. Whitney returned to her unit at Naval Special Warfare Group 2 and her 300 candidates. But every Friday night, she drove home to Norfolk. Every Saturday, she helped her mother at the diner. Every Sunday at 9, she taught. On the first Sunday morning, 40 women showed up. Some of them in scrubs from the overnight shift, some of them holding sleeping toddlers in their laps, a few of them with bruises they had been hiding for years. Whitney stood in front of them in workout clothes, plain, quiet. "Good morning," she said. "Before we touch any technique, I want you to hear this." The room got quiet. The first lesson is not how to punch. The first lesson is knowing when to walk, when to stay, and when to stand your ground. Most fights end before they ever start, because the person who is supposed to be the victim refused to be one. That is the muscle we are going to build first. A woman in the front row, holding her baby, started to cry softly. Whitney walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. "You're already in the right room," she said. "That's the hardest part." She turned back to the class. "Let's begin." Look, I'll just say it. Tyler thought he could read her in 3 seconds, and he was dead wrong. That's the part that gets me. People judge based on an apron, a job, a skin tone, and have no clue who they're talking to. Whitney's story? That's why I tell these. If you have ever been the person someone underestimated, at work, on the street, in your own family, leave a comment with one word: standing. That's all. One word. Show this woman she is not the only one. Hit the like button to help May's defense reach the next 40 women who need it. Subscribe so the next story finds you. The next one is already written. A nurse on a night bus. 3 strangers who picked the wrong stop. You are not going to want to miss who she really was.